Victoria. Today I wanted to show you how I print photos for my journal. I love printing out photos and graphics for my journal so much that I even created my own tool to make this easier. More on that in a sec. And I wanted to record a tutorial that goes through my full photo printing process. You might have seen on Instagram, I recently released a new tool on Journal Helper called Bulk Photo Print Tool. Like the name suggests, it's a tool that helps you lay out a bunch of photos for you to print at home for journaling or anything else. In the first half of this video, I'm going to cover how to use the tool, and in the second half, I'm going to focus on tips for how you can print your photos and get really good results. I've got paper recommendations, printer recommendations, and what settings to use to do all of this yourself. Okay, now let's get started. Part 1. How to lay out your photos for print using Journal Helper. Okay, first things first, you need to go to journalhelper.com and select the first tool, Bulk Photo Print Tool. Press go, and you should see a screen like this. The next thing we need to do is add all our photos. Click on the Add Photos button in the upper left, and select all the photos that you want to print. The tool will automatically lay everything out for you in the order in which you took the photos. In the tool, I provide a default size for you in the corner, but if you want to make each of these little photos bigger or smaller, you can adjust these sizes here. Choose whatever size that works best for you. You can also adjust the crop of any of these photos. To do that, just click on the photo that you want to crop and either click this button or double click on it, and you can use this screen to adjust the crop accordingly. Okay, so now I want to cover a couple of features that I made specifically for journalers. So one thing you might notice is that at the bottom of every photo, I've included the date and time at which this photo was taken. I did this especially for things like food photos because I can never remember when I had this exact meal. So now when I print out the photos, the date and time will be included automatically. But if you don't actually want to include the timestamp, you can remove it by going to the Print Timestamp checkbox and unchecking the box. And now the timestamp goes away. I like the timestamp, so I'm going to put it back in. Another problem that I have as a journaler is this. When I'm looking at my photos on the print page, it's hard for me to visualize how big these photos are going to look in my actual journal. So for this, I added a button that's called Preview Size in Journal. If we click on this, you can then select your journal size. I've pre-populated this with a bunch of popular sizes. Let's say I have the Hobonichi Weeks. And then you can see how big this photo looks relative to the size of the pages of the Hobonichi Weeks. And I find this really helpful because a photo can look really big or really small depending on the size that is put in. So like if I'm using the Cousin, which is A5, this photo might look a little bit small. But if I'm in the Hobonichi Original, it's looking about right. And if you want to take this one step further, I also have a button here that says Preview Photos in Journal, where you can select a given day and then preview the photos from that day in the journal size of your choosing. So it's set to A5 by default, but you have a similar selection of popular journal sizes that you can choose from. And in this view, you can also change the size to a custom size if you have something outside of these settings. Okay, now I want to go over some of the more advanced features of Bulk Photo Print Tool. The first one I'm going to cover is the margins and spacing panel. The first setting of this is called page margin. And actually, if you hover over the help icon here, it shows you a diagram of what this means. But the page margin is the distance between the edge of the paper and the photo, the first photo that you're printing. By default, I've set this value to be 0.5, but I actually find that's a little bit big. Most printers can handle a smaller print margin, so I'm going to bump this down to 0.25, which is a good size for my printer. The next thing you can change is the column spacing. Again, the help button here gives you a diagram showing you what it is, but the column spacing is the amount of space between each photo to the left and right. I set this to 0 by default, but you can bump this up if you want a little more space. And similarly, the row spacing is defining the space between each photo vertically. And so similarly, if you want this to be a little bit bigger, you can do so here. Okay, next I want to cover some more advanced size features. One thing I want to talk about is preserving aspect ratio. So again, by default, you set a size for your photos and every photo that you added gets cropped down to the size. But what if you wanted to print the entire photo just at a smaller size? Well, then you could click the Preserve Aspect Ratio button. And so what this does is it lets you choose a height for your photo, but the width is just going to be whatever width that it needs to be to show the entire picture at that height. So you can play around with toggling this on and off to see how you like the effect. Another thing you might want to do is print your photos at different sizes. So maybe I think most of my photos look good at this crop, but I have a few photos like this one that's actually landscape, and so I want to set it to a landscape size. The way I'm going to do that is by clicking the New Size button. I'm going to give it the name Landscape, and I'm going to define the size that I want for this photo. Let's say for landscape, I'm going to have it be 2.5 inches wide. And now to change the size of the photo, you want to click the photo and select the new size that you want it to be. Okay, there's one more advanced setting that I want to cover. So let's say we want to make another size for all of our food photos. Like maybe our food photos, we want to make a little bit smaller, so we're going to have them be 1 inch by 1 inch. So what I'm going to do is select all the food photos and change it to the food size, and I think that's all of them. After I do that, you notice that the layout gets a little bit janky. It gets a little messed up. Everything looked nice and neat when everything was organized nicely together. But now that we have these differing sizes, there are these weird gaps in our print page. So in this situation, you might actually want to group all of the same size photos all together in one section. To do this, you can use the Group By setting under Order and Layout. The Help button for this one also shows a helpful diagram that explains the differences between these settings. And you see if we select Group By Size, now all of our food photos are grouped all nicely together, and same with all of our landscape photos. Group By Height works a similar way, but instead of moving all of the landscape photos into their own section, because they have the same height as the default photos, they're actually grouped in the same section as the default photos. So it's kind of a quirky feature, but I think Group By is really helpful if you're trying to have multiple photo sizes on the same print page. Okay, now that I have my photos sized exactly the way I want it, we are ready to print. So I'm going to go to the upper right corner and click on the Download PDF button. This is going to prepare a PDF download for us, and when it's ready, it'll actually automatically download. We can open this up, and we have a PDF of all our photos ready to print. Part 2, how to print high-quality photos using a home printer. Okay, we've got a PDF we want to print now, so let's talk printing. I really love home printing, and I don't know how many people know that you can actually get really outstanding quality prints using a pretty normal inkjet printer at home. Let me show you some examples. So this is a print of the cover of Pouch issue 2, and I know it's sometimes a little hard to convey what a print looks like on video, but this is a pretty high quality print, I think. Okay, here are some other prints that I've done on my home printer. These are official arts from Pokemon and some free photos from Unsplash. But yeah, to me, these are shockingly good prints for being done on a $200 office printer. All right, so let me hold up these two photos as a comparison. This is me and my partner at the beach. And this photo right here, this looks like the nice, professionally printed high quality photo. And this version might look like what your experience might be normally when printing photos at home on your home printer. You might assume that for this print, I must be using a way better printer than this print. And that is wrong. These are actually printed on the exact same printer, but the difference is in the paper that I use to print with and the settings that I use for the print. So I'm going to first talk about paper. If you take away one thing from this video, it's you need to use paper that is specially coated for high quality inkjet printing in order to get a good result from your printer. This means if you want a high quality print, you cannot use regular cheap old copy paper That paper is uncoated, and you're going to get a result that kind of looks like this. You also cannot use a general purpose, nice quality paper that is meant for a different purpose than inkjet printing. I've got this really high quality writing paper here, and it's beautiful for stationery, but it's not meant for inkjet printing. The prints on this look pretty bad the way that it would look like on copy paper. Okay, so here's a side-by-side comparison. The first one is copy paper, and you can see it's kind of dull and not especially crisp. Actually, the camera's kind of making the print look better than it does in real life. I promise you, in real life, it's a little bit dull and blurry. This is the Crown Mills paper, so fancy paper, but not meant for print. And this one is the paper that is actually meant for print, and it turns out a lot more crisp and vibrant. So, why is our paper choice so important? Why must we use a specially coated paper in order to get a high quality print? The reason is actually pretty simple. In order to get a nice print like this, your printer is going to put a lot of very, very tiny dots in really thick, dense layers on the surface of the paper. And so the paper needs to be coated in a way where it can properly hold that amount of ink. And so when you have an uncoated paper like this, the ink is just bleeding all over the place because it doesn't have that coating to help each ink droplet stay where it's supposed to be. Okay, so hopefully I've gotten the point across. You need specialty paper for high quality prints. The next question might be, how do I find this paper? Okay, so here's the very frustrating part about home printing. There isn't actually a standard term for this thing, at least not for consumers. So I can't just tell you, like, buy paper that's labeled XYZ. So instead, I'm going to recommend two brands to you. All of their paper is coated properly for inkjet printing, and I've bought from both of these brands a ton of times, and I've always gotten outstanding results. They are Buttercrafts for sticker paper. I specifically use the Buttercrafts Vinyl Glossy paper, and like all of the stickers that I print for Pouch, these are stickers that I sell on the Pouch store. All of these are on the Buttercraft sticker paper. And then for non-stickers, I use the Red River Company paper. My very favorite Red River paper is the Pecos River Gloss in 42 pounds or 60 pounds. But honestly, every single paper that I've used from them has been outstanding. And all these photos that I showed you here, all of these prints, all of these guys were printed on Red River paper. I strongly recommend that you use one of those two brands, especially if you are just starting out, because for these two brands, I know that they're coated properly. And so if you use these papers, you can tell what it's supposed to look like when you print from home at high quality. Both Buttercraft's paper and Red River paper is a little on the pricier side. So if you're really just getting started, I suggest that you buy sample packs from Red River paper. They offer samples as low as $2 each with free shipping. Okay, I think I might have rambled enough about paper, so now let's talk about settings. To get a really beautiful, lush, vibrant print like this, it takes a lot of ink. And when you buy a new printer, by default, it's actually configured to save ink. That is great for text documents, but it's awful for photos, so we are going to need to adjust the settings on our printer and in the print dialog in order to get high quality prints. What we're looking for is some way of specifying two things. One is the paper type, which is what type of paper you're printing on. And the second thing is the quality level. What level of quality do you want to print at? So I'm going to show you how to do this on my printer, and I'll get to printer recommendations in a second, but my printer is the Epson EcoTank ET2800, and here's how it works on that printer. We need to tell our printer what type of paper we're about to use. Here's where to go on the EcoTank, but any printer you use should have this setting somewhere in its menus. It might be under something called media type or paper type. And we want to select something that sounds like it describes the paper we're using. I'm selecting Ultra Glossy, but anything with glossy in the name should work. Now we're ready to print, so let me show you how to print properly too. Okay, so if we're doing this in Chrome, click the print button here. Clicking the print button will pop up this print dialog. But annoyingly enough, this is not the dialog we actually want. These settings are too limited, so we need to click More Settings and then actually skip this section too, and instead click Print Using System dialog. And that should pop up a dialog that looks like this, and this is right. Now, before we just hit that print button, in this dialog, we want to specify the type of paper we're using and the quality level that we want to print at. For my printer, we're going to find this under Print Options, Print Settings, and we see here Media Type and Print Quality. We want the media type to match whatever we set on the printer. So I'm going to go to Ultra. And then for print quality, we want high or better. I know my printer really well, so I know there's not really a difference between high and best quality. So I'm just going to select high. But basically you want to avoid things like normal, draft, low quality, and choose something that's like high or best quality. And now you click print. And now we're printing. Ooh, and I forgot to mention this, but this part's important. When you are printing, you want to feed your printer only one sheet at a time. This is because your nice, properly coated printer paper is sticky, and so if you give your printer more than one of these sheets at a time, you are probably going to get a printer jam. Those are no fun, so just feed it one at a time. Now, as my printer prints these photos, let's finally talk about printers. So like I said at the beginning of this section, the paper that you print on and the settings that you use to print can actually affect the print quality a lot more than the printer itself. That doesn't necessarily mean that your printer doesn't matter. It just means if you already have an inkjet printer, before you go out and spend $200, $300, $500 on a fancy printer, make sure you've tried changing what paper you're using to print on and the print settings. Okay, so if you've done that, or if otherwise you are in the market for a new printer, I have two possible recommendations. My first recommendation is the Canon Pixma TR160. Here's mine, and as you can see, it's really small, but it's still a full-size inkjet printer. I recommend this to anyone who wants a small and convenient printer with decent photo quality. This printer is easy to use, and because it's a travel printer, it's also really robust and doesn't need much maintenance other than changing out the ink cartridge. There are two main downsides. First, the ink cartridge is tiny, so if you're printing a lot of full color, full page photos, you're going to be running out of ink a lot. Like maybe every 20 to 30 pages. That's a really rough estimate because it depends so much on exactly what you're printing, but the point is you're going to replace your printer ink quite frequently. Second, just a heads up, the battery pack does not come with the printer. So if you just buy the printer, it's around $200, but there's no battery pack, so you'd have to use the printer with a cord. The battery pack is an extra $100, so to use this printer wirelessly, you'll need to pay a little over $300 in total. So just keep that in mind. My second recommendation is the printer I've been using for this video, the Epson EcoTank ET2800. This printer is around $200, and as you can see, it's still pretty small, but it's not portable and it's not as small as the Canon. The EcoTank line is special because it has an ink tank rather than using ink cartridges. So you refill the ink in your printer using bottles of ink. This saves a ton on costs, so the price per print is amazing at around 3 cents per page for full page, full color prints. The EcoTank also has a very high page yield, meaning you can print hundreds of pages before ever needing to refill the ink. There is a downside to this printer though, and this is going to be a deal breaker for a lot of people. But this printer is more maintenance than your average inkjet printer. That means if you're using this printer, maybe every 3 months or so, You're going to try to print something and there's going to be some sort of problem. Like maybe there are suddenly white streaks in your print, or the yellow stops working, or something like that. These problems are actually not a big deal. They are really easy to fix yourself. You just need to do some Googling. Usually the solution is to run print head cleaning, which is something you can do just by pressing a few buttons on your printer. But if dealing with printer issues is your worst nightmare, then I would not recommend the EcoTank. I'd recommend a cartridge-based printer like the Canon TR160, since usually those are a little less maintenance. So those are my 2 recommendations. But if you want to veer outside of those 2 models, what do? Of course, you can look up on YouTube other people's recommendations for printers. If you want to get really nerdy about it, I would recommend that you go to this website, rtings.com/printer. I love this website. So this is an editorial team that has really high integrity when it comes to reviewing electronics. They don't do any sponsored content. They don't even get free machines from the manufacturer. They go to a retailer and buy the machines themselves, and they do a really rigorous job of testing the machine. Another thing that I really like is that they give their printers a different rating based on what you might be using it for. For example, this is a laser printer from Brother. As you can see, it's really great for printing documents, but kind of terrible for printing photos. Meanwhile, here's the Canon PIXMA TR160 that we just talked about. As you can see, they agree that it's a pretty decent photo printer, but maybe not so good for home office printer. And this is another Epson EcoTank, but it's a different model. It's the ET8550. And this looks like a pretty great printer all across the board, but it's also nearly $700. Anyway, there's a lot to consider when you're looking for a printer, and I really like how the website organizes this information so you can find the printer that best fits your needs. All right, we are almost at the end here. I'm going to leave you with a cheat sheet and one final tip for getting great prints. Okay, and here we go. My print has finished. And yeah, again, recording paper is kind of tricky, but I promise you, in person, this looks like a really nice, high-quality photo print. Anyway, I know I covered a lot of information in this video, so I wanted to give you a cheat sheet that summarizes everything in just a few steps. First, to lay out your photos for printing, go to journalhelper.com/bulkprint and use the free tool. There are no ads, your photos are completely private, they're not even uploaded to the internet anywhere, and you can use the tool on your laptop or on your phone. Oh, and also, I made this tool. Then to print your photos at high quality, use Buttercrafts or Red River paper. Feed your printer one sheet of paper at a time. Change the paper type or media type setting on your printer to match whatever paper type you're using. And then in the print dialog, change the paper type and set the print quality to high before you press print. So I hope this video helped you learn how to print high quality photos at home just like this. I have one final tip to leave you all with. So if you're like, Victoria, honestly, sorry, I watch your video, I still do not understand how to print high quality photos on my printer, there is one more reason why I recommend Red River paper. If you contact their customer service, they are going to help you with pretty much any printer problem that you're currently encountering, so long as you're using their paper. And not only that, they give you a lot of options for how you can get in touch with them. You can, of course, email. You can also call them on the phone, but they also offer like Zoom meetings and have like a Zoom call with them. And yeah, I haven't had a phone call with them, but I have definitely exchanged many emails with Red River Paper trying to get my prints just right, and they've been amazing. So basically, if you are not confident you know how to set up your printer, just buy the $2 sample pack from Red River Paper and book a call with them, and they will walk you through exactly what to do to get a good print. Okay. That is all I have for you today. I hope this inspires you to go out and print some photos for your journal. Please do check out my new tool on journalhelper.com. You can get there by going to journalhelper.com and clicking the bulk print tool. Let me know in the comments if you end up doing that and how it works for you. And yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!